Okay, so I've asked, in a conversation with our architect, one of the principals, Bill Silver, he volunteered to come this evening to try to set the record straight and to give us an update. There's been a lot of chatter on social media, and the day has picked up an editorial this morning. So I think it was important. Thank you for being so invested in the project as a principal of a big firm. I appreciate you coming down here this evening. Sure. and helping us out. So, Mr. Silver.
My name is Bill Silver. I'm the principal with Silver Petroselli and Associates, architects, interior engineers, and interior designers based in Hamden, but also in New London. In our 28 years, we've probably completed over 200 emergency service facilities, much like yours. And so we bring, obviously, the committee recognized that when they engaged our firm to conduct a multi-phase process for the project. Certainly the first phases that we dove right into quickly, because we knew the project was on a tight timeline, was the needs assessment and conceptual design. The committee had done a very good job of programming the project, and so we had a pretty good roadmap, but we went into the building without any influence from the committee and the commission, and we did a thorough study of the building. We knew right from the very start, and it was clearly communicated in the RFP and in a brief scoping meeting with the subcommittee, that the budget was $1.7 million, and we're going to meet $1.7 million. Part of an A&E's responsibility in these studies, in these programs, is not just to give you the limited information of what there is to meet your budget, but to show you the big picture, to give you a sense of what the total responsibilities in the long run are going to be involved with any building project. And so just to truncate our services and say, it's a $5 million project is irresponsible. And that was not our intent when we came to meet with you. When we were surprised when we came to the meeting that we thought it was going to be our first meeting with the committee. We had not even yet met with the committee, and so we were surprised that it was a public forum, and so that is our error. For showing the big picture so prematurely, to a process normally works with a committee or a commission in multiple meetings. And I can almost assure you that we'd have 10 meetings of preliminary planning where the committee and the architect and the engineers all work together to scope a project to, one, meet the programmatic needs, but also to meet the budget. We hadn't had that meeting yet. And so therefore we were surprised and probably should have guarded our remarks, although I made the point during the latter part of the presentation that these were big picture elements that would be serve the facility for the next 20 years or more. So part of our responsibility is to show that larger scale and the broader scope of the project, and then work with the committee to establish priorities, meet the program needs, and more importantly, meet the budget, and we are still going to do that. We are in such early stages. So far, you've only received about 10 pages of information, which are those preliminary budget information, again, without the benefit of the commission steering us and helping us with those priorities. Those pages list sometimes up to 4 separate priorities of the needs of the building, and those priorities are long distance, long range down the road, some of them, while most of the phase 1 priorities for the 1.7 million budget are delivering the adequate space that the police department deserves. You've made a wise selection in choosing a building, a Class A building that is well built. And we barely have had a chance to say that, except to say that, to confirm that it is a building that will serve this town for years to come and serve not just the police department, but the other space that is available within it. Our goal is to get the police department, the EOC, the fire marshal, dispatch, all under one roof in adequate space that will serve them for the next 20 years plus. And we are confident that we are doing that now that we are in this first phase of working with the committee on a process. And it's a process that will take 18 months or more. So to condense our overview report into a misconstrued reporting is unfair. Unfair to the committee that hadn't even had a chance to review that information, and unfair to us that hadn't yet really had our first meeting with the committee, and there are many more to go on this process. It is a functional plan that the police and the police commission and the planning committee have developed, and we are confident that we will make it work within the building and within your budget. We just need the time to work through the process, and responsible planning needs and deserves time working together to establish those priorities, and especially for architects to respond to the committee's needs to meet a budget. We're aware of the 1.7. We are confident that we will meet that budget, and we will probably add alternates within it to enable the town to do more should the budgets come in even better. So to give you a sense, you barely have a few pages. Truly, the document that will result at the end of this conceptual and schematic design phase is this thick. It is a volume of planning, a reporting of the minutes and the decisions that are made, and we haven't even started that yet. So forgive us architects for bringing the bigger picture to that public forum. It really is meant as a planning tool to begin with that committee. And so I think I've said enough. And
I think you have. And I know our chairman of the Vision Committee is here too, and he wanted to clear the record. But Mr. Silver, I'd like to say that you kind of fell on your sword a little bit, that you didn't know what you were coming into, and frankly, we didn't. I think members of the Vision Committee didn't realize how the process worked either, and I think, and to be truthful, I think we misfired, miscommunicated. We weren't sure what to expect, and then when we got what you delivered, our jaws dropped and said, well, and I think it was reported that way. But thank you for setting the record straight that we're, I want to say first base. We're on first base, but we might not even have gotten to first base yet, based on what you've described tonight. That we have a long way to go in talking about how to reach that 1.7. Why we're saying 1.7 is there are added costs into the communications facility. We got to bring a lot of wires into that building for
Correct.
Communications,
Correct.
and that's separate from the architectural design, right?
Correct. It
Okay.
is.
If you'd stay there, we also might have some questions for you, but Mr. Daigle, you're chair of the commission.
Yeah, I would just like to reiterate that this was the first in many, many steps. We're only at the concept phase right now. We did, following the presentation, continued our meeting, the full commission. I tasked the committee members, to go look at the material that was presented and be prepared to have a follow-up meeting. In that follow-up meeting, we did look at what was provided. We did draw some conclusions on what was a must-have, what was a nice-to-have, and what was a want. And we followed that up with a few of our committee members this past Monday, meeting with representatives from Silver and Petrocelli, and we have reached some agreement on some things that don't necessarily need to be done or have to be done. For example, the original concept had the police department split between the first and second level, with the EOC and the fire marshal's office on the first floor. We've asked the architect and the project manager to look at bringing the police department more fully onto the first floor and putting those other functions on the second floor. That should result in some cost savings from the egress requirements that were caused by putting functions on the top floor with a segregated boundary, because the police department has to have a segregated boundary from the other functions, both the planned functions and any future functions. So in that meeting, the representatives from Mr. Silver's organization and the representatives from the Vision Committee, I think, are both very confident that we will achieve a design that will serve the purpose and functionality of the organizations we want to put into this public safety building, and we'll be able to do it at budget. We have a ways to go.
Yes, we do.
And there'll be give and takes. Will we have a locker room that'll serve future growth of 50%. Well, maybe, it may only be 25% future growth as we look. We're off to look at positioning the functions in the existing configuration to the maximum extent possible. There are gonna be some configuration change. We have to have bathrooms and showers and things that are required to support. We don't, and those type things, but will need to be done. But we're off to maximize the use of the current structure, the fully satisfactory structure, to meet the functionality needs of the departments we're putting in there. Our vision committee is well representative of various organizations in town, Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, Police Commission, ad hoc members of the public, and it is our responsibility to identify a concept and bring a final schematic design before this panel that gives us a functioning public safety building at budget. If at any time during this iterative process that there is something that's identified that may cause us to exceed that budget, we have to identify that and assess how we're going to handle it. But that is not our goal. Our goal is to come in at or under budget, and at this time I feel with a very high level of confidence we'll be able to achieve that by working together as a committee and with Silva Petroselli.
For the record, one more time, because I love to hear it when it comes out of your mouth, how confident are you that we'll design this building at budget?
Very confident. We've never left an EMS, emergency service project, idle or still. We always find ways, and that's why the committee chose us, because of our effective, efficient design process.
We vetted you out, and we know your former projects, and we appreciate working with you. Sir, it's a bad night of storms, and I appreciate you